Should we have a formal introduction, or have we landed on our introduction being the introduction that we do?
No, I'm not attached to it by any means.
Okay, well, we can keep this as our introduction then.
Why not?
Why not? Exactly.
Last podcast in Seville. Why not shake things up?
Shake things up and just do
them. So this is our last podcast in Seville. Pretty sad to leave. At least I am. I am very sad. We've been here for the last 4 months. Working away, integrating into Spanish culture, learning Spanish, lots of other things, and it's been amazing. It's been incredible. But what we wanted to do was kind of run through our experience, maybe ask each other a few questions. Kind of how our different experiences have been from, starting at different points in the language. Like I think at the point that I landed in, I guess it was the Portuguese airport first. I didn't know any Portuguese for sure. Yeah. And then we went over to Seville. And I think I knew less than 5 words. Like genuinely, I knew less than 5 words. So I'm kind of curious about how our experiences have differed from you going over there with a bit of language learning experience. Overall Portuguese, Spanish, and everything. So let's get into that. What was your experience like integrating into Spanish culture, or what do you have to say there?
Well, first an overview of just kind of how it went. What we did was we arrived here in the first month, and we were with the lads. So we were with like 7 lads, all Irish, and we just spoke English the whole time. And so we learned no Spanish then.
Pretty much none, yeah.
And then like the next month we kind of kept to ourselves, I think. And then it was only the last 2 months we went and actually started socializing with Spanish people and integrating and stuff like that. So the first month we can pretty much wiped it off. So I kind of consider I started learning Spanish 3 months ago. And like in the first month we started doing like lots of reading. We started doing like kind of stuff like that. But my experience has been quite odd because I think it's really strange for me. When I first arrived here, I remember I got here a day before yous. And I went out to get food, and I didn't even know how to say like I want this. And I remember like I spoke entirely in English, and like for the first 2 months here I was speaking entirely in English. Now I had done some work before I arrived in Spanish, so I could read a good bit of Spanish, and I'd done some listening in Spanish, like a Harry Potter audiobook that I couldn't understand pretty much. But I pretty much, when I arrived here, I couldn't speak any Spanish. And now, 3 months later, kind of 4 months, like I just went on a 3-day holiday with a girl I'm dating who I only spoke Spanish for 3 days. And she was only speaking Spanish, she doesn't speak a word of English.
Which is ridiculous, because I can still remember us in those initial restaurant days trying to order. Yeah. Remember trying to order a paella, and was like, you were like, K big? You're like, K big is it? And you're like trying to do a plate.
Grande, pequeño.
There's a lot of hand symboling, and they were like,
Yeah. And no verbs, just eso, like that. Just means this. All I could say is eso.
Yeah.
I was pointing things. And like, now, like we have friends here. Like I've been out multiple times where I've been at a table with only civilians just speaking Spanish all night long, and it's really weird to see kind of how quick that progress went. But that's because I had that basis of being able to read before I came here.
Yeah.
So, but I'm still like my Spanish isn't great yet, but whatever. Like.
And what do you think was the crux point for you when you were here? Because you said when you came here initially, you didn't have that strong level, even though you had the reading experience. And then was it a flip of a switch, or kind of at what point along that journey were you like, you noticed something sizable there, or there was a clear difference in your fluency? Yeah,
like, and I know I always harp on about this, but like, so before I came here, I hadn't done that much reading in Spanish. What I was doing was relying on my Portuguese. So if you don't know, Portuguese and Spanish are like super, super similar, to the point where I think it's 95% of the words between Portuguese and Spanish are similar. So that like if you know, it's 95%, 95%.
Wow.
So, for example, French and Italian are considered very similar.
Yeah.
I think they have 60 to 70% lexical proximity. That's the word for it. Words similar. And if you don't speak Latin. But Portuguese and Spanish, 95%.
Okay, so you were cheating the whole time, basically.
Cheating the whole time, yeah. Exactly. And like French and English, I think, have like 40% or something like that. And if you look at French, you will see like you'll understand the word for government or something, and you'll understand it's the exact same word pretty much. Like, but I came here unable to speak, but I was basically on the backbone of this. And every time I hung out with people, though, those nights I really don't believe those nights where I went out and didn't understand anything, I got anything from.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
What happened was, I think it was the month of July. It was from mid-July to mid-August. Me and you started to go ham on studying, on reading.
Yeah.
So every morning we were just so consistent. I was there reading The Hobbit, and you're reading your Diglot books.
Yeah, I was just going through the whole collection.
And in that time, after a month of that, I remember the first page of The Hunger Games I started on, and I couldn't read it. Like, I was really struggling. I was so slow. Like, I knew most of the words and I could read a good bit, but I was slow. And by like chapter 2, I was a good bit quicker. Then I got bored of the book, moved on to The Hobbit, and I was slow at that, but I got quicker and quicker. And then when about 3/4 way through, I was starting to read really quick. And I remember there's a polyglot called Professor Alexander Argelius, one of the greatest polyglots to ever live.
They always have such good names.
Yeah, it's a cool name.
Really good name.
No, he's one of the greatest polyglots ever. He speaks like 40 languages to like a fucking C1 level. C2.
40 is so hard. It's so unimaginably hard to believe.
He says that he used to back in when he could do it, before he had like family and all that and like a job, he used to read for like 14 hours in foreign languages. You would just go from
that makes sense.
You go from like Greek to Arabic to like Latin to like whatever, and he's professor of ancient languages or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, he always says that when people say they're able to understand a language or that they can read very well, get them to read out loud, and you're actually a lot slower than you think.
Yeah.
And that's why when I was saying beforehand, like, oh, I could read, I couldn't actually read that well.
Yeah.
But once my reading speed got to speed where my eyes are just darting by the words, then people's speech became clear. And then I could understand people. And then when I went to speak, there was just the barrier that's between you and speaking just kind of starts to fade away, and you just start to be able to understand. It just kind of comes out.
Yeah.
So like now when I'm speaking Spanish, that barrier is gone for most of the words. And so like it just kind of flows out.
Yeah.
But before you can do that, before you've read enough to the point where you can read really quickly, you just have to keep stopping on words. Say, what does that mean? What does that mean? Because you don't have the practice. You know?
So it's kind of just the whole process is just decreasing the amount of cognitive energy it takes to read. Like once you're just skimming over those words, that's when the speech will come, because you can't really apply cognition to listening. Like you can't that's listen. Like if I'm trying to listen, I'm still not at that level. First off, but I've come a long way reading, but I'm still not at the listening level really at all. I really struggle to get any listening, and it is because like I can't listen more intently. I just don't understand what they're saying.
You can't replay it. You can't slow it down. You can't do anything. Whereas with reading, you can just read the sentence again. When there's a word you don't know, you can read it more slowly.
Yeah.
But I should have my thing muted, shouldn't I? But like often, like with the girl I was seeing there, she would say a sentence, and I knew all the words in the sentence. But when she said, I go, what's that word? I'm like, cuerda? And she's like, no, recuerda. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I actually have to re-ask. I knew the word. I need her to say it again. She has a Andalusian accent. Doesn't help. And exactly. But with reading, you can really you can max out your brain's ability to comprehend the language and to learn the grammar and to pick up new words at a speed that's right for you.
Yeah.
And why is it right for you? Because you dictate the speed. You read at your own speed.
Yeah.
And the thing you're going to struggle with the most in a language is just not knowing the words.
Yeah.
That's Steve Kaufman always. I remember Steve Kaufman saying that. Another polyglot, speaks like 20 languages. Great guy. I remember him saying that like your problem with the language is never really going to be like the grammar or anything like this, or when you're listening to someone, when you're trying to understand what someone's saying, the problem is you just don't know the words they're saying.
Yeah.
And you can't comprehend
super basic.
it.
It's actually not a difficult, it's super basic.
It's not a big problem. Exactly. It's not an unintuitive problem.
Yeah. You just don't know the words they're saying.
You just don't know the words they're saying.
Which is, I guess, a good rule to kind of tie a bow around that long point was them. Yeah. I guess if you're going out there and trying to speak and you're kind of demotivated by your level, which I've definitely experienced. Like after reading a lot and then going out there and trying to speak and really just, falling on your ass a few times because that's what it takes. Just go back to reading and then see, can I read this page without really thinking about any of the words? Does it just come to you? And if it doesn't, then don't feel demotivated or disheartened by your speaking because you're probably trying to speak a bit too early, like I was.
Yeah. Like, and speaking early, like, it's a bit of fun. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Like, some people are really against speaking early, and I would be against it as a method of getting better.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to get better, you want to just get yourself to the point where you can read really quickly or watch TV and then go out into the world and it'll be easy and it's not stressful,
Yeah.
But if you don't waste your time trying to practice speaking before you can. But don't stop yourself from speaking.
Yeah, it's really about what you expect to get out of it.
Yeah.
So if your goal is I'm going to speak because it's a bit of fun and I just, want the accomplishment or want that feeling, then absolutely go ahead and speak.
Yeah.
Just don't, there's a problem wrapped up in it when you think speaking is going to help you get better or you're going to be very demotivated or disheartened from your speech when you're not fluent because you're not.
Yeah.
And then that can be a bit demotivating, but yeah.
Especially as it's your first language as well.
Yeah.
I remember, and I'm always citing people here, but Ollie Richards, I remember him saying that like one of the most important things in terms like mentally is that you have one language down.
Yeah.
Once you have gotten yourself to a certain level in language,
like one learned language, like you've learned a second language. Like,
you've learned certain second language.
Yeah.
Once I reached B1 in Portuguese, I knew I could do it in another language.
Yeah.
But before I got there, I actually didn't really know if it would be possible for me to get there, and I kind of didn't believe I ever would get there. Like other people could understand languages and I couldn't. Back before I'd done that, I had never had the experience of a person speaking a foreign language and me just knowing what they're saying.
Yeah.
Once I got to B1, I knew I could do it in any other language. Once I got to B2, I knew I could do it in another language.
Yeah.
So that's just an important thing mentally. But as it's your first time, like when I speak and I'm really, really bad at a language, it doesn't even slightly dishearten me because I know
you've removed all of that.
I've removed it. I just know that I'm crap now.
That's a slow process. That when you're that's easy to say when you're sitting around a table of 10 Spaniards and the waiter is waiting for your order. You're sweating. You're like, I want this to be over, and I just like because it's stressful. Like, and there, everyone's like always so nice about it. Like you can say the most ridiculous thing and have your word order completely wrong and conjugate entirely incorrectly.
Yeah.
They don't really care.
No one cares.
No one cares.
Yeah.
Like they really don't care, which is great for you because that means you can kind of go out there and try put some sentence structures together and try be a little bit whimsical with the language but they just don't care. And it's great practice for you. And just for confidence alone.
Yeah, they might laugh at you sometimes, which is funny. They will laugh at you. Depends on the country, of course.
That's one of the things with Spain.
Spain, people fucking laugh at you, like.
Yeah.
and
the girls are ruthless. The girls are ruthless.
They are ruthless at you. So exactly.
I think I said this to you once that like every time I go out in I really put myself out there and I put a sentence together. I just imagine in my head that everyone's just gonna start clapping and dancing for me, like, yes, Evan, you did so well. But after they just look at you like, what the hell did this idiot just say? Where I'm just like, I just did something I'm so proud of, and then they just don't care.
Yeah. And one of the funny things about that is, if the sentence is perfect and really right, then they really won't blink.
Yeah,
because you've just said something.
Yeah, you've just said a sentence.
You've said a sentence, and there wasn't an issue.
I'm expecting fireworks.
Yeah,
I remember a couple of times I strung together a sentence I was real proud of, like a number of words, like lots of like a big long sentence, and I was like in my head, I'm like, there's like has to be like a 5% chance this is correct because like not only had I not put all of those words together before, there's so many 2-word combinations that I'd never put there before, and they just responded in Spanish, and I was like, well, hold on. That was correct. Like any of that made sense. Yeah. And they're just like, see, and I was like, oh my Dios mío. I couldn't believe it.
I do that too. Every single time I take a gamble on a sentence. Yeah. I say it and then they reply and I go, wait, let's go back.
Yeah.
Was that correct? They're like, was that correct? It's the sentence I said. Yeah?
That is a miracle.
Yeah. It's because I remember seeing something one time where someone said, great video editing is never appreciated because if it's great, no one will notice it.
You know, it's all seamless and
special effects.
Yeah.
CGI, the greatest CGI person for CGI in the world, will never get recognized by the public because if it's great, they didn't know it was CGI. Same thing with like your language learning, I guess, kind of. When you say something and it's right, no one blinks an eye. When you say something is wrong, they have something to say because they need to correct you there.
Yeah.
If your Spanish is like amazing, people will comment on that, but that's not a problem for most people, to be honest.
Yeah.
Most people don't have the issue of being too good.
Yeah. I think we've talked about this as well, which is kind of a funny conversation where there's different levels where people will correct you and people won't.
Yeah.
Like at the start, if you're like know nothing and you're like barely putting together words, like people will just kind of there's not even really a point because there isn't like one thing they did wrong. You just don't know anything. And then you learn something and people start correcting you more, which is great for your progress and development. But I noticed it, like people started correcting me and I was like, I definitely haven't gotten worse from a month ago when people weren't correcting me. I guess it just wasn't making any sense a month ago. They literally just didn't even know what to point at and be like, that's wrong, because it was just everything was wrong. There wasn't anything that was right.
Yeah, like if someone said to you, make book do good pillow, you'd go, yeah, that's so true. Like you go, okay, what the hell? Like there's nothing I can correct there. But yeah, no, exactly. We spoke with that a good bit. When I first arrived, my Spanish was so disjointed because I'd literally never spoken Spanish in my life. I'd only ever read and stuff, and I hadn't read that much. I was translating entirely from Portuguese, and at first, the people were like, "Oh, your Spanish is really good." Then after like kind of 1 or 2 weeks of actually practicing, my Spanish got to the point where I was starting to speeding up a bit, and I was starting to be able to say some things and stuff. And then next thing out of nowhere, everyone starts telling my Spanish sucks.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, your Spanish is so shit. You sound like an idiot. Like whatever. Your Spanish sucks.
Yeah.
You need to learn more Spanish. I was like, what has happened here?
Yeah.
But what has happened is I'm at the point where they're like, okay, his Spanish is actually a bit all right.
Yeah.
But he really has to just put some work into it.
Yeah.
You know, and he won't be demotivated now if I say this.
Yeah, you always critique based on the level they're at.
Yeah.
Like I've been coaching for like 9 years, and if someone comes to me through our very first class and they can't hit a forehand, I'm not like you know, you tailor the advice or tailor the critique based on where they're at. But that's funny because it's like it's very unstructured in our case because you don't have any teachers or anything. This just happens with the public. Like people in general will just notice that.
Yeah.
Like they'll kind of understand what level you're at, and then they'll subconsciously kind of figure out what advice would be good for you. Or they're just savage and ruthless, like a lot of Spanish.
The Spanish really don't hold back, which is great. It's great for getting actual accurate feedback on how you're doing, but
I wonder, is it good for confidence in speaking?
At times,
they're
definitely
not very inviting or warming. In some groups, you know, obviously, there's like sometimes you'd be sitting around and it's like, I know that if I try, it's a lose for me because I know that they're not going to applaud when I get it right, and if I get it wrong, I'm going to get slated for it. But I guess, you know, choose your battles. And
what we were out with those lads from Malaga there recently. And like you just said something in Spanish, and he just like laughed at you straight away and said, "You sound so giddy."
Oh yeah. You sound so giddy.
I was like, I would never say that to someone.
Gary's like a foreigner, or a lot of people don't know exactly that term.
Yeah, of course.
We came here and I was called it, and never heard it before. But it's like a typical foreigner, right? It's just a
normally like northern foreigner, so like English speakers, Germans, I think also giddies.
So white, typically.
I think
very white, and
I think it's white, clueless, wearing too much sun cream, and speaking crappy Spanish as a giddy. And
so we're like tick for like the entire group for a long time.
So you'll always hear Spanish people talking about it. It's like, he's giddy. That's a giddy place. So like a place that's very giddy is for tourists.
Yeah.
And it's double the price.
It's marked up,
English on the menu and has pictures and stuff like that. And so like my whole goal being here and living here is like basically trying to be less giddy, and that seems to be a way to get a bit of respect. I don't know. Is to be less giddy. But
it's unfortunate though, because it's almost mixed in that I can sometimes get mistaken for Spanish, which isn't useful for me because that means they'll speak Spanish to me and I won't understand them. Because I'm a little bit more tan. I've been like
I'm no one mistaken me for being a Spanish.
Yeah. So a lot of people will almost come to me first and speak the Spanish to me, and I'm like, man, that guy. It's directed to him.
Yeah. Which doesn't help much. No, might a bit. But
so what would you say then? What would you say is your number one language learning accomplishment, or your number one kind of memory of the last 3 months, or some time, just anything in your mind of what in your language learning journey over the last couple of months? What's a highlight?
Well, like as I already said, I just went there to Malaga, and for 3 days, literally just spoke Spanish and only back and forth one person in Spanish, and that. Like, one issue is, right, we live here in a house with just me and Evan, so we speak English all day. So really, we actually don't get much Spanish practice.
Unfortunately, yeah.
All of our Spanish comes through reading. So pretty much nearly all the Spanish I've learned has come through just reading novels and having the odd day out where we go out and stuff. And there'd be like Spanish speakers, but most of the time we go out with Spanish speakers who speak English too, and we end up speaking English. So that for me, like when I went away, at like the first day I was rusty, and then by the end of the day I was a little bit better, and then the next 2 days it was just flowing. And it was really weird because when I was coming back, I was saying this to you, I was thinking in Spanish, and like all my thoughts were in Spanish. And if I like my brain had just then found Spanish to be the easier mode to speak in. And even like if I thought of somebody saying something in English, like if I just had a memory of someone saying like, we're going to do this, my brain would just repeat it in Spanish right after. So it was like, for me, coming back from that holiday, I was like, whoa, this is my first time where I really feel like I could live in this country and I could actually reach a really high level. And this is now for me a language that I'm speaking without thinking about.
Yeah.
And it was very quick to get there. So I was like, so for me, like that's probably it. The rest of the time, I was reading The Hobbit. I've
noticed the Spanish running through my head thing happens after nights out. So I don't know if it's alcohol induced or not, but if I have a night out and it's a heavy Spanish speaking night, like we go down to a botellón. So a botellón is a really Spanish thing. It's basically where you have a session outside where you drink. There's obviously different places for it, but we went down by the river and it's a lovely area. There's loads of people down there. There's lots of music. There's drink. It's good stuff. It felt very Spanish.
It's very Spanish, yeah.
But if you go down there, you're really pushed to be speaking Spanish because there's not a lot of English speakers down there. It's not an English speaking thing. So if I had a night out of really having to use Spanish and pushing myself to use Spanish maximally, I would wake up the mornings after racing with Spanish. And it could even be basic kind of sentences back and forth, but it would be just racing with Spanish and be no English in my head. And then after about 10 minutes of waking up or something, the English would like slowly crawl back.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. Just the immersion, I guess it's just immersion.
I find it very interesting that you say that because that's something I've been experiencing for a long, long time on language learning. And this is why it's really important to engage with the language every day. And by engage, content that you understand, most importantly. If you understand it, most of that. But an hour a day, if you actually do engage for an hour a day, that racing in your mind really starts. Yeah. Or random words are just coming. I often find it's random words. And
it's completely no order to it at all.
No order at all. Even with it, like when I got to like a higher level of a language, I found that still to be random words. So like I remember with Portuguese, there's like a chess channel I watched in Portuguese, like him just looking at chess games and stuff. And he had this opening he said all the time, like his opener thing was saying, it was just really quick though. And I could never actually understand what it was. And just one day it clicked what he was saying. And then for like 2 days, the only thing that was going through my head was that one phrase, just again and again. Yeah, the second I understood it, that was going through. Same with German. When I was first doing German, just random words like, Hausa, this is just words just shooting through your head. And I find, and this is another reason even, never mind just the studies or never mind just my experience of improving. I always feel like of all the experiences that I do that give me that most racing in my head, it's reading novels.
Yeah.
So when I'm reading, it's because I'm understanding the most. I'm getting the most content per second. If I do an hour of reading for like 4 days in a row, my head starts to race with the language, and it's just always just shooting from the language. And what I just believe that is my mind trying to process it. It's just trying to work out what are these words, and it's just in the background just trying to do the calculations, because most of that figuring those calculations out isn't conscious; it's unconscious.
Completely,
it's subconscious.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe it is, but it's just,
Yeah, it's trying to figure out what to associate those words with, where to nest it, or where to package it, chunk it into something you can use. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just doing the work in the background.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what I believe that is. I get that all the time. And when I was coming back from the holiday, my mind was just random words of Spanish, especially it'll often be things you just learned. Like it'll often be words that just came up that were new. If you analyze them and have a look at them as they come up and just think, what are these words actually? It'll often be words that just came up. One
thing that I noticed that I thought was interesting was how taxing it is. Whenever I'm really trying to speak in Spanish, it's like I'm wearing 10 kg cufflinks around my ankles and hands. Every action I do just has more resistance to it. There's a lot more energy needed to do it. Yeah. Like after a proper night of trying to speak Spanish, you're exhausted. Really taxing, really cognitively difficult. Yeah. Especially if you're not used to task switching, which is just when your brain switches between two things. It happens all the time when you switch from doing a mundane task to watching the TV, playing a game, anything. But your brain does it for languages, and it needs to almost switch mode, and it's very taxing.
It's very taxing.
And you don't notice that until for the first time you start actually really immersing yourself in the language for a few hours. It's tough. You're almost flattened for a day or something afterwards. You're like next day even trying to use Spanish is tough because you're like I'm still tired from the last time I was using Spanish. Just need to build up their muscle again so it becomes reflexive.
Yeah, that thing about the cuffs, like every word almost having weight at the point. Like it's there's a weight as each word comes out. That's what I meant when I was saying, as you start reading more, that barrier just starts to slowly break down. When you fully acquired a word, the word doesn't have weight anymore.
Yeah.
As you open your mouth and as you go to say a thought, the word just comes out and you're not thinking about it. When you have memorized a word, the word carries weight and you will always have to calculate it. You'll always have to think hard about it, and it'll always be really heavy for you.
Yeah.
And when you just do lots of reading, you'll just find one day you'll open your mouth and the words don't have weight.
Yeah.
As you speak, they just flow out.
There's no inertia at all.
No inertia. Exactly. So there's been times where my language has been really bad. I read for like 3 weeks, and after those 3 weeks, I haven't done any speaking practice, but then I come out and the words don't have weight.
Yeah.
It's just like, and it's very easy.
Yeah.
So that's like when I'm saying the barrier, that's the experience I'm trying to express.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that feeling of the effortlessness.
I've noticed that you'll say that like, oh, wasn't great at Spanish last night, I haven't read in a week, and then you'll start buckling down and reading a couple more each morning, and then you'll come back and be like, wow, I can't believe that. Like, I can't believe that. And I think I'd noticed it as well. Like I was just reading the whole way through. Now I think for me it's probably a little bit different because my progression was mostly just a bit more learning the words for the first time and just reading all the time. But I was getting no practice outside of reading because I guess it comes back to one of the things that I'd change if I did differently coming back again is that reading, if I read that book 2 months before I came, if I started reading all those books 2 months before I came and I would have came here with the level I have now, you just are able to reap so much from the integration into the culture. Yeah. You're able to get so much because all the signs aren't like all the road signs aren't mystery to you anymore. Like everything around you is almost unlocked. Like when you go here for the first time, I don't read things because I don't know what they say, so I just don't bother. So you block everything off. But then once you start gaining those initial words, those initial 500, 600, 700, everything almost opens up and you just start seeing the words around you. Like you start reading the names of buildings, the road signs, everything, and like you actually just realize how much there is. But before you get those words, you block it out completely. It's unknown. It's incomprehensible. So it's one of those I'd really like people always talk about best way to learn language is to go to the country. I do agree with it, but like, God, if you come here and you know none of the language, it's not very useful.
Yeah,
everything is incomprehensible. It's a bit too fantastical. Everyone's like, I love the idea I can just go to the country and take it in. Like, really, you will learn, unless you're reading every day and really engaging and really struggling with it. Like, everything is incomprehensible. You can't go from zero to anything if you don't have anything. Like, what do you think about that? When you're at zero, there's really, you could walk around Spain for a year and not get anything.
Yeah.
And like, because every conversation, you don't get anything. Every music, every song that comes on, you don't get anything from. It's all about putting in that work so that when you engage in the society, you pick things up and it's not just completely out like it's known. It's not unknown. So
this is like the kind of like immersion from day one idea. And it's something I'm quite against in terms, like, practically. So there's this whole community called AJAT, and it stands for All Japanese All the Time.
It's fascinating me, these people.
And what they do is from literally day one, literally from day one, they only consume Japanese all day long.
Yeah.
It's like 8 hours a day of Japanese or something, and they don't do anything else but content. They just watch TV and they just read. But basically, it's like 8 hours of TV a day in Japanese. And when there's some of them while they're sleeping, they have Japanese on in their ears, which definitely doesn't work.
Yeah, is there data behind that?
I think there's been studies. I remember seeing a study saying it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They kind of say there's some higher level.
It's very dubious.
And how could you even study that over a long period of time, really?
Yeah, maybe some placebo effects, but
there could be some rhythm advantage or something. But as far as I know, or what people were saying is, your brain kind of shuts off from listening when you sleep. So you're just
shuts off from all the world. That's the point of sleeping. It shuts off all of your sensory apparatus to the world. You don't need to input anything.
So it shouldn't be inputting at all.
Yeah.
Anyways,
AJATs.
Yeah. So like, okay, if you come here and if you don't need money, right? If you have infinite money and you move in a house with all Spanish people, and you only listen to Spanish all day long, and you're some superhuman who can do this. Cool, yeah, it'll work, like, to some degree. And if they want to put up with you all day long,
that's another thing.
That's a big thing.
People will just. That's actually a really good point. Is that people expect the other person to just sit there and talk in the most playful, normal. Like, you need to talk to a 3-year-old. Like that, you need, because that's the level you're talking about. People aren't just gonna sit there for hours and talk to you at the level you can talk to. But they're not gonna do that.
People aren't gonna put up with you just sitting there saying nothing,
like a babbling baboon. Like, they're just not gonna do that.
Fed up with you like straight away and say, "I'm gonna hang out with someone else."
Yeah, this isn't because it's not fun for them. Like, it's not fun for them.
So if you know literally zero, they won't want to put up with you. You know.
Yeah.
So like, I just like. Number one, you're not going to understand anything. It's going to be stressful.
It is.
No one's going to want to put up with you. Like, it is a really stressful thing. Whereas if you just spent like 3 months, you read your 6 Diglot books, so you have like 700 to 800 words. You know, I think there's 1,000 actually in the French collection.
All the way to about 1,000.
There's 1,000 words in the French collection. They're the most common words. You'll come here, you'll understand the road signs. You'll understand a lot of what people are saying. You'll be able to read books. You'll be able to improve quickly. You know.
You'll also understand what someone shouts across you at the road or something, or you bump into someone how to properly apologize. Or there's a lot of those moments where you can get very stressed out because you don't know what the standard procedure is.
Yeah,
like you're I don't know, someone's blocking you in the path and you don't know how to get past, but you really need to get past, and then you end up doing something rude or something. Like, you need to know if you getting those books in early gives you the procedural stuff. It lets you ask for things. It lets you do things. It actually lets you be an agent. You can do things, And
no matter how much people try to sell you that it will work, a phrase book is useless. It's completely useless. Because, right, if you learn, say you want to learn the phrases for the restaurant, okay? All right, actually, let's do a more scary one. The bus. So I went to the bus the other day, right? And the bus is a real scary one because you're in a queue and people are talking quick.
Behind you.
And when the guy behind the counter talks, he's like, he is not waiting for you.
Yeah.
If you think that you can memorize off all the possible phrases he's going to say, even if you get a native speaker in your ear and it says it 1,000 times, in real life, when he says it, you're going to go, what?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to understand it. But if you have acquired those words through context, through reading and through listening, then your brain understands what he's saying as language. And when it's language, then you don't need to put effort into understanding him. So this is the issue. You need the words that the waiter says to be language and not something memorized if you actually want to understand it. And if you want to use the language when you speak, you need to also have acquired that as language.
Yeah.
So as Evan was saying, all the words have weight to it. Jesus, they have weight to it when you've memorized it. Like if you memorize a phrase off by heart, you're like, kero, has, air. And it's just like, and the person's just there like, what
the hell?
What are you talking about? Like, and when you go to say it, you'll always say it just completely wrong because the words are meaningless to you.
Yeah.
When you have a phrase that holds absolutely no meaning, but you know technically what it means, you're going to say it in the wrong intonation. You're going to just say a random word in place of another word and be shocked when someone doesn't understand it. And you're going to say, but it's basically the same, when it means something completely different. You know?
Yeah.
So there's like a million reasons why a phrase book just never works. And
another one I've always thought about is like conversations aren't 2 dialogues long. So like you generally don't memorize something, go up, and then they don't respond, and then your thing is perfectly executed.
Yeah.
They'll say something else, and then you're like, well, I'm done. Yeah. I only did they're gone off script. I've only practiced the first one.
Yeah.
How do you go from there? And that's also not an enjoyable aspect of integrating into culture if you've memorized the phrase. Like you don't feel accomplished with that, really. You might be some confidence in like, yes, I just did that, but there's no, I actually spoke to that person, really. Like that's not what speaking is, and using language, as you say. You
need actual language. So you need to be able to understand what they're saying in context and to be able to reply without really thinking. You need to have acquired that. And the roadmap is quite clear. You read your 6 Diglot books. Then you read like intermediate stuff, like just easy books. So like I always recommend to Evan, there's a website link, L-I-N-G.
Link's great. Link's helped a lot. Link's really, really good.
Once you finish your Diglot books, there's like 60 stories there for free you can just listen to. And they're really good. Normally it would take you like 30 hours to go through them, just listening to them again and again and again and again and again. But because you've acquired like most of the words through Diglot books, could take you like 8, I don't know. Like
no clue, but it does
7.
Gives you great another thing that if you hear a word for the first time you've never seen it written down, it's incomprehensible, nothing. Yeah. But if you, after hearing a word that you have read, it's like you immediately can understand it then, and then you attach the sounds to the word that you've read so many times and to the context that you've read, that you've seen it in so many times, and that's how you almost get the full concept of what a word is from a sense of acquisition and not just like memorizing it.
Here at Diglot, we don't yet have our audiobooks, but we will eventually.
Yeah.
So that'll be really,
I cannot
cool.
wait
That'll be so cool.
Because, cannot wait for those.
That'll be so cool. But, listen to them and then like read a like Diary of a Wimpy Kid book or two, a few of them. And Diglot will give you the words and a lot of the grammar. It'll give you a lot of conjugation. It'll give you a lot of like phrases and stuff like that. But actually just getting all of those words and then connecting them together with simple full stories that have all the words that we've given you will really just bring the language into a whole.
Yeah.
Where you can use it and you can understand it and you don't have to think about the words you're using or whatever. But
here's a good incentive for that. So because I didn't do that and I didn't do all that reading before I came, I'm gonna say 2 quite embarrassing stories.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I would say one of them was bad. The other was kind of just funny. But they're kind of situations where I've been, trying to do something, trying to order something, trying to integrate into Spanish culture in some way, and it's backfired on the because language is quite complicated, and sometimes you can learn a definition for a word or see a word and you can get it wrong. So I think one of the first one I think it was only a week or 2 after we'd gotten into Spain, and we were ordering food, and can't exactly remember what the dialogue on the food was, but I was trying to ask, is it hot? Or I was trying to ask, how hot is it? Because I'm not a spice guy. And I said like, how caliente is eso? And so I was like, how, or something like that, where I was trying to say, I used the word caliente, relating to no, it wasn't food, it was outside. It was outside, it was the temperature.
Exactly, because that would be right. That would actually be correct.
It was temperature.
I was thinking,
It was temperature, and then that's what it was. And then I said I'm very caliente, and she's very but caliente doesn't mean hot in that context. I couldn't remember. It was months ago that this happened. But I basically I either called myself or the waitress horny or both.
Yeah.
And it might have been both.
My memory was that you said she said something like it was just really hot. It was like 40 degrees or something.
Over 40 degrees.
Exactly, it was over 40 degrees.
Ridiculously hot.
And then we're just sitting there, and the waitress said whatever, I don't know. And he just went, soy muy caliente.
Soy muy caliente.
which means,
I'm very horny. and I remember just... But see, so that was a funny situation where like very innocent but quite funny, because I think she gave me a look and I was like, well, why is she telling me?
Because caliente does mean hot.
Yeah.
So your food, if it's spicy, is caliente.
Yeah.
Or like you saw hot chocolate today. It was like
chocolate caliente.
Chocolate caliente. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it does technically mean hot, but like you could imagine in English, like someone's hot and heavy or something. Like exactly. We don't use it for them, and as far as I've seen, that seems to be the majority word for that. That's like the most common way they say it. She
was taken aback, and I she thought she was just getting some nice gentlemen's food orders, and then one of them's horny for some reason. That's a bit strange, but I'll keep going.
Yeah.
So that's a mix-up that you cannot make if you read your Diglot post.
we have the words. We go through all of our words, and we make sure that none of them that we teach you at least cannot be misconstrued exactly
for anything else.
So exactly, exactly. We make sure we have things around that, so you don't end up with some stupid thing like this.
A funny kind of. I'll get to the other one in a second. A funny thing that I learned from that I actually didn't know before was just how indirectly languages map onto each other, and like how you think you can be saying something that and you just can be really saying something entirely different. But knowing that has been such a motivator to keep learning the language, because I know that there's actually, like for the first time, I know that there's unique messages that I can only have talking in Spanish. Like there's conversations I can only have in Spanish, or like there's ideas that you can't communicate through English, like not truly. But the other story. So this only happened like a couple of days ago. So the slip-ups don't stop, and everyone I think makes them. I'll try to get one out of you later if you have one. But I was trying to get an ice cream. I think I do have a few of them. Yeah, like everyone I say does. I was trying to order an ice cream. I said like dos taurinas porfa, and the taurina I think is like a tub or something. And then she got out the tub, and I was like, no, I actually coño instead. And then I was like, as soon as I said, I was like, oh. I know what, because I knew in that circumstance, I knew what word I'd said. I meant cono, which was cone. Coño is very different. An entirely different word. A word that I don't even want to say. Coño is C-U-N-T.
Yeah.
So she, lovely ice cream lady, was getting out a tub, and I said, no, coño. I said, no, cunt, porfa. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, she I think understood what I meant almost immediately, and then we got the cone, but I was like, oh my God, that's terrible. That's terrible.
That's pretty bad.
But they're like, I don't even know how they're spelled differently, because I've only seen one of them written down. I don't even know how they're spelled differently. I think it might even be an accent on an O or a U instead of an O.
It's an Enye.
Enye, exactly.
So here's the thing, is that I'm the exact same mistake for one that I make, and pretty much every giri, or pretty much every like English speaker makes when they first start, which is the N in Spanish. There's two N's. One has a little squiggly on the top. It's a tilde, I think you call it. And the one with the squiggle is like ñ, and one is like n. So I wouldn't be swearing so much, but coño and cono. Any Spanish speakers here are like cringing up at themselves at hearing that. The thing's died.
Yeah, we're good. The our camera has just ran out of battery, which means we've hit the hour mark already.
Really? 44 minutes. I mean, we keep talking because we're on Spotify as well. Anyways, so the difference is that one is spelled like ñ, one is spelled like n. So one really common one is saying, if you want to say I am 20 years old, You say tengo 20 años.
I have 20 years.
Años with an N. Años. But if you say, most people, they just see N, they don't know how to pronounce the N. So you say tengo 20 años.
Yeah.
Which means I have 20 anuses.
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah. So it's really, really common for
20 anuses.
Yeah. So it's really common for foreigners.
Imagine going up and saying that to somebody.
But they understand. But there's a few times where I was talking and I was like, I was talking to my brother and they're like, well, what age is your brother? And I was like, oh, tiene 20 años. And they were like,
my brother, yes, he is 20 anuses.
He's 20 anuses. I was like, okay. Nice fact, but what age is he?
No, I feel sorry for him.
I feel sorry for your brother.
But that's a good one to point out, I guess, that the Enya thing, because I thought it's not just an accent, it's a different letter.
It's a different letter.
It's a different letter. So like I went months thinking it was just an accent on the N, and like it does have that effect of just pronouncing it differently, but it is a different sound. There's a Y there. It's like the canyon is the way, like the NY in canyon.
Yeah.
It's like, it is just a different
canyon.
sound.
Yeah, we have it in English, but canyon.
Yeah.
You know, Enye. That's it. But it's just nasalized, and if you want to be exact about it. But there's actually, I have a point with this. This is the one thing that people will kind of scare you about, or people are afraid about when speaking a foreign language, is making these kind of mistakes. They don't really come up that often.
No, and when they do, they're funny. It was purely
exactly.
a funny moment.
And people always talk about this, like, but when they do, the majority of weird things you say aren't like, okay, when you're at the very beginner stage, you'll say some funny things and then you'll learn from it and it'll be a good learning experience and everyone there will laugh and you're now better friends with everyone you're around because they're like, look, we've had this funny memory together.
Yeah.
When you get to a higher level, so like a level I'm at, when I make a mistake, it's never, me saying some ridiculous swear or something. It's normally me saying something kind of cringe. Yeah. So I tried to like directly translate. I was saying this to Evan the other day. I said, I was talking about the girl, when I was in Malaga, the girl I was with was getting Coca-Cola or something. And it was like a really hot day. And I was wanting to say, oh, Coca-Cola is the best. Like it's the fucking best. And I like tried to say it in Spanish. And I was like, how do you say that the way I'm saying it in Spanish? And they're like, she was like, you could say that. And she said, eso da leche, which means it's kind of just cringe to say that. Like, as if you're at like a kid's birthday party being like, me and all my homies, we all love drinking Coca-Cola. Yeah. I don't know. Like, and there's a lot of things like that where someone's like, you can say that. It's just kind of weird. Yeah. But that's kind of like when you get to like an intermediate stage or something like that. All I'm saying is that really there's no real worry of saying something ridiculously bad because everyone knows you're a foreigner and they treat you as such. and if you say something ridiculous, they go, Spanish isn't his first language. That's just hilarious. And I'm going to go tell my friends this funny story.
Exactly. I genuinely think it's just a funny moment, and you should think of it as that. And I remember it fondly, and it's hilarious. It's a vulnerable moment, but like the more kind of almost vulnerable moments you can have where you've messed up in the language they're all character building. Every single one of them is, I'm getting slightly better at being the person that just made a bad mistake in front of lots of people. And if you can get really good at that, really languages, you'll be like, you can just, if you have that level of confidence, you'll be good for any social situation, really. Yeah, definitely. But the big thing is, one of the biggest things is that you'll really remember that word you mixed up. Yeah. So my strongest memories in language learning are those times I messed up and I know the word that was there and I learned that thing really well from then on. Yeah. Those mistakes really tagged for emotional salience. Exactly. Like really how much emotion is tied to an experience really actually improves your language a lot. Yeah. That's why, to bring it back, that's why reading books is really good, because when you read books, you're so engrossed, like you're really just in the story. That's why you got to read things you like as well. But you're really engrossed in the story. You really like what you're reading. You're there when the character does that cool thing, and the language just fades into the background, and that's when you really pick up the language. Yeah, and that's why I normally steer away from even things like Link and stuff. Like
because Link's stories are like John went down the road and he bought an apple and he does whatever. Don't go to that when it's hard. Go to that when it's really easy. Like after reading Diglot books, when it's so easy that you can just plow through them in like a day or two. Yeah. Like you don't want to be spending a month or two on your Link stories shooting yourself in the head because it's the most painfully boring
mostly
experience.
For motivation. Like it's just so difficult. It really is difficult to keep that going.
No, definitely. You want to be so good that you just plow through them in a day. Same with like Ollie Richards. So Ollie Richards has some nice books. He has, for like, you'd be good to read them after you read Diglot books, but they're the same thing. It's like stories he wrote that are like a story about a time traveler or something, and like you would never read this in English. Like if you told me to read this story in English, I'd be like, I'd rather die than read this story in English.
Yeah.
But with Sherlock Holmes, you would.
Yeah.
You could read Sherlock Holmes in English. You'd read Alice in Wonderland in English.
Of course.
So that's kind of the point of Diglot, I guess, isn't it? But yeah, read Diglot, get really good, then plow through these books in like a day because it does help to get the language all put together. And the easier the material you read, the better you get. You always want to be reading really easy material. But you don't want to be spending any amount of time doing it. Yeah. Because it's boring and we have lives to live, don't we?
Yes. Well, some of us. I'm still working on that. Yeah. Question from another kind of angle. Okay. We've been talking all about all the amazing time we've had learning the language and stuff, and how everything's been an outrageous success. Yeah. Were there any times where you were pretty demotivated from learning the language? Any times where you had taken a couple of L's, taken a couple of, oh God, that didn't work out quite so well. And then if so, how did you work through that and how did you keep going? Or
yeah, I found start of August to mid-September quite tough.
As you were deciding to leave, kind of, or
just my progress. There were days where I went. I think what happened was there was some point in the start of August, something where I had like one good night of Spanish, and I was like, yes, I'm a beast at Spanish. And then I think my reading fell off a bit. I think also my reading fell off. That was one of the big things. But I had a few nights then when I went out and I was bad. And I really struggled. And I was demotivated to read or demotivated to do anything because I was like, there was just a small plateau that happened where there was still a gap. And I think one thing that happened was instead of going out with someone one-on-one where they'll slow down for you, I went out with a group of natives.
Yeah, where you can't control the pace that they're going to talk at. You don't control that conversation.
And they are speaking to each other in full speed. And that's really hard. Like, that is a really, really difficult thing. You need to be at quite a high level for that. And I found that period quite demotivating because I didn't feel like I was making a lot of progress. And then and I always feel this kind of happens, I kind of just got a sudden burst around mid-September or something where a lot of my reading just kind of came together and I kind of really started speeding up there a lot. And then next thing, those kind of situations, I actually started to understand what people in a group were saying to each other a bit.
Yeah. And
then I had a few more one-on-one conversations in Spanish. They helped a lot because they spoke slowly and were really nice to me. And then by the end, I feel kind of good. But yeah, that period there, I think one of the most demotivating things is going out with a full group of the speakers, because they speak quickly with slang and they're not going to speak weirdly to their friends just because you're beside them.
Yeah, agreed. I'd say for me I'd say it was a little bit different, weirdly. So I never felt demotivated when I made a mistake. I actually felt quite proud of myself for trying.
Yeah.
The times when I felt demotivated was when I know that at this level I should be able to string together this sentence, but I'm kind of paralyzed with anxiety in getting it wrong.
Yeah.
So like, there's a lot of times where I'm like, okay, I kind of, I could get the sense for what they just said. And I'm pretty sure I have these words, I have them in the back that I can pull together a sentence, and then I'm trying to do it, but I kind of freeze up a bit and I don't end up saying anything. Those times when you're actually just too anxious or too crippled by it to even say anything, that was quite demotivating, because I'm like, damn, I don't really care about making a public mistake. I'll do that. And when I don't try is when I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
When I don't even try. And a lot of those moments happened early on, very, very early on, which is why I think I'd be a little bit against. The reason I think that going out there and speaking from day one doesn't work for everyone is because it does demotivate you.
Yeah, definitely.
And you can get like kind of not scarred, but you can get a lot of moments built up where you're like, well, that also wasn't good, and that also wasn't good, and it all depends on what scale you're judging yourself to and what you're trying to achieve by speaking. But a number of those in a row where you're just like, God, especially when you're a social person, and you're just dying to tell stories and joke and have fun and show things and talk, and then you can't, and you're just crippled by it. That's demotivating.
It's very demotivating. Exactly. I don't agree with the whole speak from day one kind of stuff. I really think like for us, we're going to like I can talk about this a little bit. I would like to start on a new little language, and I'd like to start maybe on French or Italian, and I'd like to go to France or Italy. Evan wants to keep going with Spanish, so we could just keep going on Spanish. But I am not going to arrive in France with no French. Before we go there,
determined. Yeah.
No, before we go there, I'm doing 3 months.
Yeah, same.
Of going balls to the wall.
It's the biggest learning thing from this for both of us, I'd say.
Yeah, 100%.
But the amount, it's so non-linear with how much gain you can get from that 2 months.
So much.
Like, because you can literally, because like you really want to get it so that you can start gaining the language when you're there. And you so as soon as possible, you need to get it. You want to be learning the language from day one.
Exactly.
When you want to start getting all of the things from day one. And you just can't do that if you don't have the foundations, if you don't have that base.
Like if I arrived in France today, I would waste the first 3 months not learning anything from the natives and only learning from my books.
Yeah, exactly.
And
like, all the learning is going to happen from your books, which you could do from Ireland.
Which I could do from Ireland. Yeah. Exactly. So I might as well just live wherever else. And it would make me feel... I feel stupid when I'm over there because I don't speak anything, and it's just I feel isolated and the thing you said is so true. When you know none of the language, you can't read the road signs. You can't even begin to start reading them.
Yeah,
your brain blocks it all out. And then once you know a few hundred words and have experienced reading the words multiple times, your brain, you can then read them and you can feel like I am picking this up now.
Yeah,
it's not just a foreign object. So yeah, but the thing you were saying about being paralyzed, it's really true. I feel like one of the biggest factors in just being good at languages or your language ability being good or actually being expressed as good is your confidence when speaking.
Yeah.
So I say this a lot. When I have 2 drinks in me, that is my peak language ability.
I've definitely had that the same, yeah.
Absolute peak.
Yeah.
The time I'm the worst is in the barber. Because the barber is scary.
It's intimate as well, and he's very He's
very masculine barber man who I need to look cool in front of. And he's cutting my hair and being cool, and I have to say things while I'm trapped into this chair with a blade to my throat,
and I forget the number what 2 is in Spanish. I'm
literally no. Like I go from having a conversation, speaking Spanish for like 2 hours. I go into the barber and I can't even say hello. Like I'm just like hola, cut my hair. I'm like what? And then they're like, and I literally can't say anything. And they're like, what do you want? And I just point and I just go 0, 0, 0. And I don't even try to put it together because I'm like too anxious to make a mistake for some reason in that situation. Why? God only knows.
Yeah,
I haven't figured out.
That one specifically is very funny.
I haven't figured out, but the barber is a situation where my Spanish goes to like A1, like 0. And I'm like, this is hilarious because it's clearly so mental.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, for sure.
It's just
that's a good point. So mental.
Yeah.
But I guess I think it's also important to say that by no means are we saying that people shouldn't travel and shouldn't go to the place.
Yeah.
But I was going to wrap that up at we, I guess in this 4-month experience, if we can do anything, is to like encourage people to go and do a 3-month or a 4 months journey in another country and really do embrace the culture and talk to the people and everything. And I think that's amazing. And I think especially post COVID, people will be doing it more and people will be going everywhere in the world. But I truly think that if you're going to get the best possible experience of being able to do whatever you want, really, you can go to that country and do anything you want. Read your 6 Diglot books before you go.
And It really is just the best advice. And that's what I'm going to be doing if we go to France, if we go to Italy.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go read the Diglot books. I'm going to have
For sure.
the most common words seen maybe like over 30, 50 times each. Some of them over like 5,000 times.
Thousands,
Exactly. Like all those big bad boy words over like 5,000 times, some of them. And then I can just go there and I won't, when people say a sentence, I'll know the words in the sentence.
Yeah.
You know, when I read a menu, when I read instructions, I'll know the words in the instructions. It's just like I'll know 80% of the words.
Yeah.
And if you know 80% of the words, you're doing class.
That's probably one of the things that's kind of been most reinforced. Because like if people haven't had an experience learning a language, they might be quite skeptical of that statement. And you should absolutely be skeptical that you can just read 6 books and get to like 85%, 80%. But the way language is used and the way it's so overly represented, that's been constantly reinforced that you really can do that. You can only be exposed to 1,000 words and just it gets you so far.
It's just because of Pareto distribution.
Yeah.
So basically, there's just a rule, you know, in everything. But in language learning, like 20% of the words takes up 80% of all speech. Right? You know, that's the minimized version, but there's more exact words on things on it. So I think like there's something like 1,500 words takes up like 85% or like 90%. And in
that was more. I thought it was 90.
It's like 90%. If you look at subtitles in Netflix, and this is what we're doing for our new books, I think only like 500 words takes up like 70%.
Actually, 70%.
70% of the way there. Only 500 words, and you understand 70% of everything that's in Squid Game.
Yeah.
That was it, Squid Game. And
which is kind of crazy.
It's kind of actually insane.
It's actually kind of hard to believe.
It's hard to believe. It is hard to believe
because we've been doing text analysis and word analysis nonstop, and we're constantly shocked by what the results are. Like you actually just need 500 words is so few.
But once you get to this, the thing is that when you actually get to the point where you're doing quite well in language, you understand what people are saying, you're intermediate level, you're kind of whatever, that makes sense to you. You kind of think it sounds all right. This what I'm going to say is kind of stupid, but you kind of think there's not that many words.
Yeah,
but there obviously are but in terms of what people say under day to day, there aren't that many words. People just use the same words all day long. If you look at my like WhatsApp messages with like people in Spanish, there's like, it feels like there's 10 words being used again and again and again.
Yeah.
And it feels like, it doesn't feel like there's any more than 100.
Yeah.
And, well, WhatsApp is going to be particularly like, hey, what's new? What's up? What's crack? Are you coming out? Are you doing this?
So repetitive.
But then when you actually talk, you're going to point to a thing like a bicycle. You're going to talk about a doorknob. Those ones obviously don't count in that. But in terms of the bulk of language, very repetitive.
But I think the main reason that it gives you that is that you start getting, once you have 70-80% of the language, you can start getting the other 10-20% through context.
Exactly.
So like if you get those 500 words, what you're still basically acting in a Diglot way in a sentence. You're just turning the Spanish words from unknown to known. And then there's other unknown ones, but like you can actually read a fully Spanish sentence, and in some way it's diglotted because some of the words are known and some of them are unknown. And then as you keep reading, you just basically keep turning words from unknown into known. But the first 500 acts as the scaffold for 80% of sentences. If you can understand the sentiment of 80% of sentences, you're doing bloody well.
You're doing really well. Yeah.
And the amount that you can do in the country that you're visiting, wherever in the world, multiplies by 10. And the less you'll be upsold.
Yeah.
The less you'll be upsold and have to do all these other things that are a consequence of not understanding it. Like being charged too much money, or being like, there also is a side of like, you'll be able to tell a taxi driver that you don't like, that you're not accepting this extra charge of 30 quid for no reason, or you'll be able to tell the builder that he like, those like, it gives you that as well.
As a foreigner, they will, especially giddy, especially if you're a giddy, which as I said means a white person, they'll try to charge you more money for things. So, but if you even, I have found if you show any form of Spanish accent when you say anything, they don't do that. Yeah. But if you go, hey, what's up, what's crack, whatever, what's crack in an American accent, if you like talk English, then you're going to be charged more and stuff. But if you even say like, lo siento, like if you just lo siento no, when they're trying to ask for something very quickly you'll be just treated more.
Yeah.
Unbearably.
Really, it's financially irresponsible not to buy Diglot.
Not to buy Diglot, exactly.
I think that's the conclusion of everything we've said, is that it's financially and morally irresponsible.
Morally irresponsible.
Not to buy.
I don't know why, but it is.
Yeah. Don't look that last one up or think about it at all.
Yeah.
But I think it's true.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on wrapping up our trip to Seville? Like really, as soon as we're finished this, we have to pack all of our equipment into our bag, and like we're leaving tomorrow. So this is the last, any final thoughts of our trips here, adventures of?
Well, the question is, what's next?
Yeah.
We don't know yet. What would ideally for you, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go home to Dublin, and we're going to live at home for, I don't know, maybe a few months or so.
Yeah.
What are your options that you think would be good for doing next?
Yeah.
What are the possible things? What are the situations that you think would be good there?
Yeah, good. So I've had now 3 months with Spanish in the bank and feeling very confident and motivated. I'm just so excited to continue on Spanish. I can't leave Spanish just yet.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to leapfrog to France now, and then I'll just have the Spanish in the back, and then we can leapfrog to Italy after. But I just need a little bit more time. Like now that we have the roadmap, we know what we have to do. We need to go back to Dublin. We need to read Spanish.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I think, and we've talked about this, I think the most adventurous, most exciting, most character developing place to go would be South America.
Yeah.
On the fact that there aren't that many actual like places in Spain that tick all of our boxes, just Buenos Aires is just perfect for me. I'm just, everything about it, every time I look it up, I'm like box tick, box tick, box tick, and it just looks so beautiful, and I just need some more time in that Spanish language.
Yeah.
Because I'm only hitting that initial, very, very initial integration into Spanish and trying to speak in Spanish and all of that. And like another 3 months of reading and then another 3 months in that place, that 3 months will just be so much more different to this.
You'd be a beast. You'd be an absolute beast of Spanish by the end of that.
In my mind, I think that would be so amazing. And then after Buenos Aires, we'll go to Brazil.
We go to Brazil. Oh yeah, I'd kill to go to Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the big plan we're trying to do, and we're trying to work out where we go next. And Evan's right that now would be a very bad time to switch language, especially for him and also for me. The most efficient way for you to learn a language is to stay with one and to just go with the momentum. I have right now have a lot of momentum, especially after that little trip there, and I can really start reading some good books. I can start reading things I want to read. I can make friends. I can talk to people. I can do everything like that.
The terms
exactly. The terms are exactly. I no longer have I don't have to deal with any John went to the shops kind of stuff. The like short stories on like a link or anything. Oh God, Jesus. But I have two reasons why I want to do it. One is that I really, really enjoy reading Diglot books, and I want that experience now. I want to pick up a language and I want to read, the six French Diglot books, and I want to get my French class. And I want to go through the whole experience, and I really feel I'm missing out on that. And if I do that half-assed, what I want to do is make a big video where I go from no French to loads of French, and show you guys me learning French through Diglot. So that's my big thing. Yeah. While I'm doing this, I'm not reading Diglot books. So the way I'm getting around that is by right now I'm doing some Korean on Diglot, and I'm doing some bits and bobs for languages that we don't have finished yet. But I don't want to waste that experience and to learn any French right now.
Because you want to go from zero.
Because I want to go to zero to class. Yeah. Through Diglot. So that's one big reason I want to do it. Also, I'm so ADHD that I just want to change what I'm doing every 5 seconds. But the most efficient thing will be to stay in Spanish, I think. Buenos Aires will be pretty sick.
Be amazing. There's a lot of beneficial aspects of running a tech company there. They're on the same time zone as America. So a lot of American companies that are trying to get money in America or try and build American connections will do is go to Buenos Aires. Because it's the cheapest, most beautiful place where you can go and still stay on that timeline. It just looks beautiful. Yeah, I'm not ready to leave the Spanish just yet.
One thing is South American Spanish is very different.
Yeah, we'll have to make an Argentinian Spanish book.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
We'll have to.
As far as I believe, it's not that different. Like, there's actually a lot of nouns that are different. Actually,
interesting. So like the stuff that doesn't usually change.
Stuff that doesn't usually change is actually different. So, and I can't remember them. Someone told me loads of different ones. Obviously, I didn't remember because they just said them to me. But I didn't read them in context. But for example, the word dinero, which means money, and we have it as dinero in our books because they say plata, which means silver.
Very
plata o plomo. It's
plata o de plomo.
Plata o plomo. It means like money or dirt. I think that's right.
Plomo,
which is the opening thing in Narcos.
Oh.
In Narcos, there's a scene where the guys come up and he's trying to bribe them, and they're like, "We're not taking a bribe or whatever that." And he says, "Oh, Sergeant, your newborn child is on the way, and you in the back. I hear your wife Maria is very like this. So now, what do you think, Sergeant? Plata o plomo?" So yeah, exactly. But
learning those differences is something I'm very excited about.
It's really easy. Like, honestly, like, once again, people say about Andalusian Spanish, they say it's the worst thing ever, but the most fun part I found of being in Andalusia was learning all the little fun things.
The differences. Yeah.
Differences, so fun. Like, instead of más o menos, they say más o menos. Instead of después, they say después.
See, that's another difference between our experiences, because I don't get any of that.
Yeah.
Because I learned Spanish for the first time. So the way they say it is the only way.
The only way.
I never had a comparison.
Yeah.
So this time I'm looking forward to going to Argentina and being like, they said this in Seville and they say this in Buenos Aires and they say, and I'll have the reference point. I'll have the comparison.
Yeah.
But before anything, I didn't have a comparison. I was learning everything for the first time. So if they said it odd or in a different way that would be just standard, I thought that was normal, or I thought that was the only way. It's the only exposure I've had to the language. Yeah,
and also your Spanish will be better, so that, like, your Spanish will be a lot better, so you're going to be able to understand it.
Yeah,
like, it's going to be sick when we can go out and we actually both be able to go back and forth and understand, talk with natives, and like do all that kind of stuff, because we've both got through that first 3 months of reading.
Yeah,
you know, you have to read and watch TV and stuff before you can, you got to crawl before you can run.
Yeah.
So,
but it's such a clear roadmap. What I'd love to do is get more, because so many people are buying the full collections now. I'd love to be getting people's opinions on what their journey was like and what they did and how they experienced it. I'd love to be able to highlight those more, because it's amazing when some of our listeners or some of our supporters will come back and they say like, "Oh, I read your Portuguese book and I communicated better with my nana."
I'm like, people saying that. Yeah, it's really nice.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
That's so beautiful. Like, it's so like, that makes the, that's why we're doing it, why we're trying to make these books, because fundamentally you get to talk to more people, you get to experience more things, and that's something I've experienced for the first time here. Being in a different country for pretty much the first time outside Dublin. It's been incredible. Like, that's just such an invaluable thing, is being able to communicate with someone in a different language. Something I didn't appreciate before. Even maybe 2 months ago, I didn't appreciate as much as I do now. And I guess I just cannot wait to keep doing it in more countries and keep producing more books and keep trying to make the books as good as possible, so that we can give that to more people. We can give that experience of going to a place and being able to fully integrate into the culture.
Oh, I'm dying now. I really, really want to just learn French. I really want to just do the whole 6 Diglot books, read a bit of intermediate, go on to reading actual content,
move to France,
speak French.
Move
to France, speak French.
Move to France, speak to French.
It's just a clear way of, like, literally, just because the whole point is that all you need to do to understand native speakers is to be able to understand a word in context, which you can just do from reading, and you just need to know enough words, which you can just do by clearly doing the roadmap of read Diglot books, get the first 1,000, do the short stories, puts them all together, read some intermediate stories, gets you another 1,000 pretty quick enough, and then just watch some TV and then just speak to natives and stuff like that, and you have like 90% of the words.
And none of that is difficult.
It's actually
like, none of those are like, and then you have to do this. It's like, it's not a difficult roadmap. Like A to B, A to Z, it's super easy.
It's so easy. It just takes time, not even that much time.
It just takes time.
It does just take time, and exactly. If anyone ever tells you they can learn a language in a week or even a month, and like actually be able to go from zero to like be able to speak the language and everything. It's just not true.
Don't purchase their course.
Yeah, don't purchase their course. And if it has lots of memorization and like phrases in it, definitely don't purchase their course. But anyways, look, I think we've said enough there.
Yeah, will we wrap it up there?
Yeah, super.
That was fun.
I think that was a very fun. That was a good podcast.
Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. I guess next time you'll hear from us, we'll be back in cold Dublin. We'll probably be depressed.
Back in Dublin.
Probably be super emotional about what we're missing here, and probably very much wanting to leave again and get to a new country.
Yeah.